The day my business trip ended, I received a photo of my husband, Ethan Whitmore, locked in an intimate embrace with his ex-girlfriend, Camilla Rhodes. Without a flicker of panic, I opened WeChat and dropped the picture into our family group chat, ironically named Our Loving Family. The screen immediately exploded with question marks, but I simply powered off my phone, a faint smile curving my lips. Whoever sent me that photo deserved my thanks. Now I had the evidence and I had the recordings. I was going to make sure Ethan walked out of this marriage without taking a single thing with him. Just as I stepped out of the arrivals gate at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, my phone started buzzing again. It was my mother-in-law, Victoria Whitmore. Her voice came sharp and demanding through the line, asking what the video in the group chat was about and ordering me to delete it. I pressed my lips together and let the corner of my mouth tilt upward. "You're mistaken, Mother," I said calmly. "This is Ethan's mess, not mine." And with that, I hung up, ignoring the phone as it kept vibrating relentlessly. Back home, I pulled out my 22-inch suitcase, the one small enough to carry the remnants of 3 years of marriage. Other than basic necessities and clothes, there was only one thing that truly belonged to me, a fat, affectionate cat. He rubbed against my legs, purring, gazing up at me with those wide, trusting eyes. All I had ever given him was a roof and a safe place to live, yet he gave me his entire heart. I reached for his carrier, gently placing him inside. This was my cat, and I was taking him with me. A sudden noise came from the door. "Where are you going?" Ethan's voice was low and uneven. His normally neat hair tousled from rushing his breath quick. Even now, even in this moment, his tone toward me was sharp, impatient, always interrogating, never gentle. When he was in a good mood, he might joke a little, but most of the time, he ignored me altogether. I had endured this cold emotional violence for 3 long years. I met his eyes, my voice deliberately light. As you can see, take a guess. The bitterness rose in my throat, but I forced it down. I wouldn't let him see me break ever again. From the beginning, the imbalance between our families had made me feel small and unworthy. Every argument stripped away any sense of safety I should have had in my own home. Marriage is supposed to be about mutual support and deep connection, but all I'd received was contempt, meaningless fights, and a wall of cold distance. I kept packing, ignoring him until he reached for my suitcase. I yanked it back, my gaze full of disdain. Those hands had once felt warm to me. Now they only made my skin crawl. Why wouldn't they? Those same hands had been wrapped around another woman's waist. "Doesn't that disgust you?" I asked, my voice icy. His composure cracked, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "Olivia, listen to me." I set my things down and stared at him. "Go ahead, talk." His eyes brightened slightly as if thinking I'd softened. He told me he hadn't meant to see her, that Camilla had been at a business dinner, gotten drunk, and he just happened to run into her. Just happened to be at the same alumni gathering. Just happened to be photographed. "Sorry, but nothing in that picture looks accidental," I cut in. He scrambled to continue, insisting he didn't even have her contact information, that I didn't need to make a big deal out of this. He pointed out how he always came home on time, never stayed out late. About the photo, he said she had been too drunk to stand, so he'd simply helped her. I had been swallowing my rage all night, but now it burst free. "Really? And did she also force you to kiss her?" His face shifted into the look he always wore. When he tried to placate me, soft, almost pitiful. He repeated that it hadn't been intentional, that she'd been too drunk, and it was just an accident. I looked at him, then really looked, and realized that what I felt wasn't just anger. It was the deep, cold certainty that this man, the one who had promised to be my family after I'd lost my own, had never truly seen me as someone worth cherishing. "You don't have to blow this out of proportion. Are you really going to divorce me over something so trivial?" Ethan's voice had shifted, growing steady and self-assured, as if my anger was nothing more than an overreaction. I stared at him like I was seeing the real man for the first time. The disgust that filled me was sharp and absolute. Without another word, I pulled my suitcase toward the stairs. My cat lay silently in his carrier on top of my luggage. Usually the moment I took him out for a vet visit, he would howl like his heart was breaking. Tonight, though, he stayed unnervingly calm, as if he understood the heaviness pressing down on me. Ethan caught up to me, his hand clamping down on the handle of my suitcase. "Olivia, don't be stubborn, please." I turned my head to reply. But the words caught in my throat as I noticed a figure stepping out of a nearby car. Camilla Rhodes walked toward us with a soft, forgiving tone that painted me as an unreasonable child. "You must be Olivia. You've misunderstood. There's nothing going on between Ethan and me. Tonight was just an unfortunate accident." Her hand swept through her hair, slightly tousled by the night breeze, and Ethan immediately slipped off his jacket to drape over her shoulders. The way he shielded her protective tender, I had never once been on the receiving end of that. So he was capable of caring. He had just never chosen to care for me. "I really did drink too much tonight," she continued, her voice sweet, "and it was pure coincidence that I ran into Ethan. Things just got out of hand. I'm sorry." The apology floated in the airlight and empty, but her eyes caught mine with a flicker of challenge only I seemed to notice. We'd gone to the same high school, Ethan and I, but back then we barely interacted. It wasn't until years later, after I graduated from college and started working at a small local media company in Seattle, that we truly met again. He was already a rising star in his field, while I was just an ordinary staffer at an obscure firm. Over time, our paths crossed through work. One afternoon, I happened upon him doubled over with stomach pain, his skin pale and slick with sweat. Without hesitation, I called an ambulance and stayed by his side at the hospital, later bringing him congee when he was discharged. After he recovered, he insisted on taking me out to dinner. I couldn't refuse, and from then on, our time together became natural easy. We dated for a year without a single serious fight. Life flowed so smoothly, it almost felt unreal, and before long, we were married. I ignored the cool distance from Victoria Whitmore, my mother-in-law, and the vast differences between our families. I stepped into that marriage like it was a dream I refused to wake from. After the wedding, life continued in a calm rhythm. Ethan was busy, but he always came home on time and told me in advance if there was a dinner or event. On anniversaries, he would hand me a bouquet of white camellias, a gesture that felt sincere. Back then, I truly believed I was the happiest woman alive. That was until a few months ago when he took me to a reunion with his college friends. "Did you hear Camilla Rhodes is back in town?" one of them said. "Really? I thought she'd settled abroad for good," another chimed in. "I heard she's divorced now and she's staying for good this time," someone else added, glancing slyly at Ethan. Could it be because of our golden boy here? The teasing was crude, making my stomach twist. A friend beside me must have noticed the way I frowned because they nudged the offender to stop. I glanced at Ethan. His expression didn't change, and he even mildly chided his friend, "Don't talk nonsense." "Olivia's here." Relieved, I told myself I could trust him, but throughout the evening I caught him looking down at his phone, even though there were no new messages. That wasn't like him. In that moment, it felt like half my heart had iced over. When we got home, I asked lightly, "Who's Camilla Rhodes?" Ethan slipped an arm around my shoulder, his voice vague and calm. "She was my college girlfriend. We broke up because it wasn't working and she moved overseas. She got married. I haven't been in touch with her for years." Looking at his composed face, I chose foolishly to believe him. Looking back now, I realized that from the moment Ethan heard Camilla had returned to Seattle, his focus had begun to slip. At the time, I didn't think much of it, and that night, I still decided to leave. Traveling with a pet made things harder. It took me a while to find a hotel that allowed cats. By the time I'd set out his litter box and food and watched him pad over to me with those clear green eyes, it was well past midnight. He looked almost worried, and I stroked his head, whispering, "Come on, buddy, we're on our own now." The next morning, I moved into my parents' old house. It was tiny, but it wrapped me in a sense of safety I hadn't felt in years. I remembered when Ethan and I decided to marry, my parents hadn't been thrilled. The gap between our families was too wide, they said. They were afraid I would be the one to compromise to lose, but they didn't fight me on it, and eventually they agreed. Then the very day I returned home after the wedding, a traffic accident took them both. From that moment on, Ethan was the only person I could lean on. I remember so clearly how he held me that day, his eyes red, promising I would never have to be afraid, that he would always be my home, my family. I had sobbed into his chest, and now thinking back, it all felt like a mirage, a reflection of the moon on water, beautiful but untouchable. When a man wants to comfort you, he will say anything. And the truth. The truth was, I had no reason to trust him at all. But having been sheltered by my parents my whole life, I didn't understand that. I walked straight into the net he'd strung for me. It wasn't until everything came crashing down that I began to piece together the signs, the coldness, the flashes of irritation. That reunion months earlier had been a thorn embedded deep. I began to see how he was growing distant, using work as an excuse to stay out more often. One day, I happened to glance at his phone and saw a chat from a contact saved with a flower emoji. "Ethan, how have you been?" "I'm back." His reply was short. "Yeah, I heard. A bunch of us, including Olivia, should get together. It's been ages." She asked if he would bring me. "She's working late tomorrow, so probably not," he wrote. That night, I hadn't received any invitation. Instead, I had stayed home happily cooking a big dinner for him. He came in just before midnight. After that, their messages became more frequent, and one day I stumbled upon a long emotional text from her. "I've never stopped thinking about you." He didn't respond until the next day. "Camilla, do you know what these last 2 years have been like for me? I drank myself to sleep every night just to dream of you. I had such hopes for our future, but you destroyed all of it with your own hands. Every anniversary, I still bought white camellias, even though they weren't for you. That promise to you is carved into my blood. Please don't contact me again. I have my own life now." Reading it, my hands trembled. For a split second, I felt like I was the intruder, the third party in their story. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Still, I didn't confront him that day. Later, when he leaned over to kiss me in bed, I turned my face away. "It's that time of the month," I said evenly. He frowned. "I'm pretty sure it's not." Then he sighed. "You must feel awful. I'll get you some warm water." I watched his back as he walked away, and my heart was a storm of tangled emotions, resentment, longing, sorrow, all roiling together. But I reminded myself that he was the only family I had left, and I told myself to endure. The craving for something to hold on to was strong, but the truth was, my heart had already gone cold. The beautiful memories we once had were nothing more than a shattered mirror, their shards slipping away beyond my reach. I had started doubting him more and more, and he could feel it. His patience with me thinned until it all but disappeared. We argued constantly over the smallest, pettiest things. Deep down, I knew our marriage had twisted into something sick and warped. Ironically, I found myself almost grateful to Camilla Rhodes. She had handed me a legitimate reason to think seriously about my future. I could earn my own money, cook my own meals, keep my own home. I couldn't come up with a single reason to justify his existence in my life anymore. I blocked his number, blocked him on WeChat, and left the family group chat that had gone silent ever since I dropped that damning video. The next morning, I went to work as usual. Life went on, and as a long-standing employee of Evergreen Media Group, divorce or not, I still had a job to do. But life has a way of twisting the knife. As the company's biggest client, Ethan was bound to cross paths with us now and then. Normally, a department manager would handle things. Not this time. This time, he showed up himself with Camilla walking beside him. The moment I saw them, it felt like a lightning strike to my chest. Everyone in the office knew we were married, and here he was parading his ex like some prize. If it weren't for the fact that I needed this job, I would have thrown them both out before they crossed the threshold. Ethan's eyes found mine, the corners of his lips curling into a rare, almost gentle smile. "Olivia, it's been days. When are you coming home?" I didn't answer. My gaze shifted to Camilla, who stepped forward with an easy smile. "Our company has a new project and we need to partner with a media firm. Ethan suggested yours. Don't misunderstand. I'm just here to take a quick look." The way they stood close, the subtle touches between them, I honestly couldn't tell whether they'd come to sign a contract or flaunt their relationship. "Is that so?" I said evenly. "Fine, I'll take you to our manager so he can explain the details." I wasn't surprised to see the brief flicker of discomfort cross her face. "What's wrong, Camilla? Did you want me to create a scene so you could bask in your own poise and grace?" It was laughable. She was just scavenging what I had thrown away. "I don't need it anymore," I said, clearly turning to address everyone in the office, "so you can keep it and enjoy it." My eyes locked on Ethan. "I assume you've received my divorce papers. If you still can't let go of your ex, I have no intention of forcing us to play happy couple. Heaven has mercy, so I'm more than willing to let the two of you be together. But given the proof of your infidelity, our shared assets will be split evenly. You have no objections, do you?" I didn't lower my voice. I looked him dead in the eye as the weight of my words sank in. Around us, my colleagues and his employees stared at the floor, but I knew every one of them had heard me. My phone vibrated over and over in my pocket, my legs almost numb from the tension. Camilla was quick to play the wounded party. "Olivia, what are you trying to say?" "I've never had any inappropriate thoughts about Ethan. I tilted my head. Funny, did I mention your name? Sounds like a guilty conscience to me. She froze, realizing she'd just walked into my trap. Biting her lip, eyes shimmering, she grabbed her designer bag and left. Ethan shot me a hard look. You're good, he muttered before hurrying after her like it was more urgent than the day he was born. Once they were gone, I ignored the whispers and stares. I walked straight into my director's office, ready to take the heat. I'm sorry, I said. I might have ruined everything. That's it, she replied. I blinked, not understanding. Before me stood Margaret Turner, a woman in her 40s with striking confidence and elegance, the kind of woman many in the office admired for her independence and success. Her gaze felt like it cut straight through me, past my words to the truth underneath. It's fine. One client isn't going to bankrupt us. Stop looking so defeated. She patted my shoulder lightly, the warmth of it unsettlingly close to motherly. And one more thing, don't give me those pitiful eyes. Go back to work. Drop that defeated look, Margaret said, her hand landing lightly on my shoulder. The touch was brief but warm, the kind that made me think of a mother's hand, even though I hadn't felt that in years. And don't look at me with those pitiful eyes. Go back to work. Heat rushed to my cheeks, and I ducked my head embarrassed before slipping quickly out of her office. The moment I stepped into the hallway, my phone began to buzz. I glanced at the screen, unsurprised to see the name, Victoria Whitmore. I answered, and her voice came at me sharp and cutting. Olivia, have you lost your mind? If it wasn't for Ethan insisting on marrying you, do you think you'd have had the chance to set foot in our family? Now you want a divorce? Who exactly are you trying to impress? I stepped into the emergency stairwell, letting the heavy door close behind me, and answered evenly. Mother, your son is the one cheating. I have pictures and videos to prove it. If you have this much time to scold me, maybe you should use it to teach him how to behave like a decent human being. You insolent girl. How dare you talk to your elders like this? I almost laughed. You have no standing to lecture me. Once Ethan and I are divorced, we'll be strangers. If you want someone to scold as a mother-in-law, I'm sure you already have someone who listens to you. The other end went silent, except for her breathing heavy and ragged. I didn't care. And one more thing, when the roof leaks, you fix it from the top. You should probably worry more about the person sleeping next to you. I hung up before she could respond, her angry shout muffled by the stairwell walls. I had known for a long time that my father-in-law was having an affair, but I had kept it to myself to preserve a sliver of dignity for the family, even from Ethan. Now I doubted Victoria would have much free time to harass me again. When I stepped outside, I froze. Ethan was leaning against the gate, tall and composed in a black suit, holding a cigarette between two fingers. As soon as he saw me, he crushed the last ember under his heel. Olivia, can we talk? He asked. I'd assumed I wouldn't see him today after all. Camilla had been crying when she stormed out this morning. Shouldn't he be busy comforting her? I'm not in the mood, I said flatly. Let's leave it for tomorrow. I'm busy today. My head was pounding feverish, every step a pulse of heat. He caught my hand, a mocking smile flickering at his mouth. Didn't you want a divorce? Why the sudden lack of urgency? I yanked my hand free and stared at him. My voice was sharp. Fine, talk. Seeing my cold expression, his tone softened. Olivia, do we have to be like this? Yes, Camilla and I were together once, but that's the past. This time was just an accident. Don't blow it out of proportion. I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. So she forced you to kiss her. You think I haven't seen enough soap operas to know that excuse? This isn't some scripted romance. Do you even realize how pathetic you sound? If you hadn't made her feel like she could get that close, would she have dared? Ethan, don't let people think so little of you. For a moment, he just stared at me like he'd never expected me to speak with such strength. Saying it left me exhausted, but it was worth it. I turned to go, but he grabbed me hard from behind, nearly making me stumble. You're not thinking straight. Let's go home. His grip was firm, and no matter how much I struggled, he was stronger. He all but shoved me into the passenger seat, and I stopped resisting, curious to see where he thought this would lead. You've been gone for days, he said as he started the car. Where have you been? I know you don't have many friends. That's right. You know I don't have parents anymore. No real friends, no one to rely on. That makes me easy to control, doesn't it? I thought you were my last safe place in this world after my parents died. I let out a bitter laugh. Turns out you were just another cruel joke. Olivia, don't be like this. Don't you think you have some fault in this too? If you just let it go, we could go back to how we were. I looked at him, the mask of sincerity on his face, and felt nothing but disgust. You make me sick. Whatever you feel for her, everyone in your circle knows. Keep your white camellias and give them to someone else. How can you treat my love like it's disposable? I said, my voice low but steady. If you can't let her go, then stop dragging me down with you. His face blanched immediately. Did you look through my phone? He stammered, reaching for my hand to stop me from opening the car door. His voice dropped, carrying a tremor of panic. Believe me or not, I have no intention of getting back with her. If you saw the messages, you should know I turned her down. That day, it was a mistake. If it still bothers you, I'll keep my distance from her. I had no tears left. My voice was calm now, almost too calm, as I turned to meet his eyes. Ethan. Ever since she came back, your jacket hasn't been on my shoulders once. I've never seen you take care of anyone the way you take care of her. I used to think you were just the kind of man who didn't pay attention to the little things, but now I know the truth. You just didn't care about me. We're husband and wife, but you and her, you're lovers. I don't fit in your picture. One act of disloyalty is enough to end it forever. I don't need to teach you that, do I? Said quietly. For years I've given up socializing, given up making friends, given up my own life, all for you and your family. And in the end, I have no one to share this pain with. Life went on, but the divorce papers still hadn't been sent back to me. Then I remembered I'd left 2 small things at the old house. After a moment's hesitation, I decided to go and retrieve them. The moment I stepped inside, a sound from the bedroom froze me in place. Low, intimate noises that made bile rise in my throat. Ethan, you know I've never forgotten you, a voice murmured. Through the slightly open door, I saw Camilla Rhodes's pale arm draped over his shoulder. Her face was flushed, eyes glimmering with something far too pleased. After I got married, I regretted it so much, she whispered. I thought about you every day and night, about the sweet, beautiful days we had. And now I've come back. Can you accept me? Her gaze lingered on him, and even in the shadow of the swaying curtain, I could see his expression, soft, indulgent, exactly like a man in love. My nails dug hard into my palm to keep myself from falling apart. I switched my phone to silent, lifted it, and took a few photos. That was all I needed. I wasn't going to soften again. From now on, I would let the law protect me. He didn't speak, only sighed until his eyes suddenly caught mine through the crack in the door. In that instant, I saw something I had never seen in him before. Panic. The ever-calm, calculated Ethan Whitmore was finally rattled. He shoved Camilla away so abruptly, she almost stumbled. Olivia, listened to me. Maybe I'd never really understood him, but at that moment, I realized it didn't matter anymore. Sorry to interrupt, I said, my tone polite to the point of cruelty. I only came to pick up a few things. I'll be out of your way soon enough. Without another glance, I walked to the sofa and sat down. Not long after Camilla came out, her cheeks still flushed, heading to the kitchen for a glass of water. She glanced at me out of the corner of her eye, something smug sparking there, as though she had won. She sauntered over while Ethan was still in the other room. Sorry, she said, her voice dripping with malice, for messing up your bed. She wore a white shirt, hair loose, the picture of sultry dishevelment, but I wasn't a man, so I found it nothing but revolting. The sound of my palm meeting her cheek cracked through the air. You slapped me, she gasped, clutching her face, staring at me as though she couldn't comprehend it. Why wouldn't I? Yes, I failed to keep my husband. But you, someone with no morals who destroys another woman's marriage, you deserve that slap. Her eyes narrowed and she raised a hand to strike back, but before she could, Ethan appeared, holding her wrist firmly. Enough, he said, his voice low but firm. The anger and humiliation on her face didn't fade, but she was trapped in his grip. He didn't look at her, only said quietly, Go home, I'll call you. Her complexion paled, the smugness gone. She stared at him like she didn't recognize him anymore, then silently straightened her clothes and left. The silence that followed between Ethan and me was heavier than anything either of us could say. Olivia, I'm sorry, I didn't think you'd come back so suddenly. I stared at him, my voice colder than ice. So if I hadn't seen it, were you planning to pretend nothing happened, Ethan Whitmore? Your way of thinking is beyond strange. Are you lying to yourself or lying to me? Do you really believe that if no one knows, it means it didn't happen? You've perfected the art of deceiving both yourself and others. I was too tired to keep talking. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm here for 2 things, my belongings, And the divorce papers. At this point, I think we both know there's no reason to prolong this marriage. His eyes clouded with regret, but I didn't give him time to speak. From my bag, I pulled out the divorce agreement I had already prepared and handed it to him. This time, he didn't hesitate. His signature hit the paper quickly and without protest. I walked into the bedroom, ignoring the cloying scent that still lingered in the air, and retrieved the medicine and medical reports from the nightstand. When I returned to the living room, I didn't even glance at him. I picked up the signed agreement from the coffee table and walked out of the house I had once considered my safe haven for the past 3 years. My steps felt heavier than they should have. Ever since my parents' fatal accident, I had suffered from a mild eating disorder. I'd been at the scene that day, and the image of their charred bodies and the blood-stained pavement had haunted me for years. It took over a year of therapy, and Ethan's care for me to even begin to recover. It wasn't until 6 months ago that my body started to feel normal again. Now sitting in the back of a taxi, I looked down at the 2 thin sheets of paper in my hands. My tears blurred the ink until I could hardly see. One was the divorce agreement, the other was the pregnancy report. My cycle had always been regular, never late. After months of preparing for pregnancy, I had become sensitive to every change in my body. And 3 days before I discovered Ethan's affair, I found out about the tiny life growing inside me. 9 weeks. That's how long the baby had been there. Quietly existing, never once making me sick or uncomfortable. And yet I had to let go of the small, fragile hope I still had. I unlocked my phone and booked an appointment at Seattle Grace Medical Center's obstetrics department. I rested my hands on my belly. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. You came at the wrong time." My vision blurred again, tears slipping freely down my cheeks. 3 days later, after taking a leave from work, I went to the hospital alone. Sitting in the waiting area, I felt a strange emptiness, as though everything inside me had gone silent. 3 years ago, I was still my parents' beloved daughter. 3 years later, my life was unrecognizable. Olivia Hartman. The sound of my name pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up into a pair of familiar eyes, my former mother-in-law, Victoria Whitmore. She was dressed elegantly, her posture regal, but compared to my pale, weary face, her presence made me feel smaller than ever. Before I could speak, Ethan appeared holding a stack of papers, striding toward her. His surprise was evident when he saw me. "You're here, wait." His eyes widened, realization dawning, and a spark of joy lit his face. "Olivia, you're pregnant, aren't you?" I handed him the test results and nodded. "Yes. Over 9 weeks now. The baby's been good, no morning sickness, nothing." The happiness in his eyes burst into something almost childlike. He held the paper as though it were priceless. That's amazing, Olivia." Even Victoria stepped closer, her tone still carrying that undercurrent of disdain, but her smile was real this time. "Why didn't you say so sooner? Have you confirmed everything? How's the baby?" "The results are good. The embryo's healthy," I said softly. "But unfortunately, I'm not going to keep it." The smile on Ethan's face froze. What did you just say? "I'm here for an abortion," I repeated calmly. "I don't want to have this baby." Victoria's face darkened instantly. "Olivia, what gives you the right to decide the life or death of a Whitmore child?" "The fact that it's inside my body," I said, my voice steady. "And it's not even a child yet, it's still an embryo. I have the right to decide." Around us, murmurs began to ripple through the waiting area. Ethan looked torn, glancing between his mother and me. He took a step forward, gently pulling Victoria back. "Olivia, please, let's talk about this. We can figure it out." "No," I said firmly. "I will not bring a child into a family built on forced compromises, into a home with no love, only lies. Better no child at all than that." Our eyes locked and I saw the pain flicker in his. I knew he had been hoping for this baby, dreaming about it. "Olivia," he said quietly, "we could turn the guest room into a nursery. We could think of names together. Do you think it's a boy or a girl?" His voice was filled with longing, but for me it was too late. "Earlier today, while we were waiting at a red light, you pointed out a beautiful wooden baby crib in a shop window and said that one day we should go look at it together. Every word you ever spoke about our future, every small dream you shared had been etched into my heart, proof that you truly wanted this child. And now every one of those memories only deepened the ache inside me. I remembered the day during one of your health checkups, when the doctor diagnosed you with low sperm count, telling you that conceiving a healthy baby naturally would be difficult. You never said much about it, but I saw the shadow that fell over you, the quiet collapse you tried to hide. It wasn't until these past few months that your spirits began to lift, not because your condition had improved, but because you had reconnected with someone from your past. I still don't know whether to feel devastated or simply numb. When the nurse called my name, I didn't hesitate. I walked past you toward the exam room, and I heard your voice low and hoarse behind me. "Olivia, don't do this." Without turning, I replied quietly. The decision to keep or end this pregnancy was never really mine. It was yours. I took a 2-week leave from Evergreen Media Group, telling my boss plainly that I had just undergone an abortion. The line on the other end of the call went silent for a long time before I heard her sigh. "Take a month off, Olivia. Rest." For the next month, I barely left my apartment. My fat orange tabby cat followed me everywhere like a loyal little guard. But there was one thing I couldn't understand. Every day a container of soup would appear outside my door. I knew exactly who was sending it. The container was the same kind I had once carefully chosen for his lunches. What I didn't know was why. Late affection that arrives after betrayal feels as cheap and unwanted as weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. He behaved as though he hadn't been the one to cheat, as though soup could erase the wreckage he had caused. I smiled bitterly at the thought, but he persisted. Every day, a different kind of soup, as if he could redeem himself with variety. I never touched them, not once. Until one late afternoon, taking out the trash, I saw him standing near the entrance of my building. The pale gold of the setting sun cast his thin figure in fleeting light and shadow. "Olivia," he said softly. "Have you been doing okay? Is your body recovering?" I looked up at him. He'd lost weight. Between his brows was a faint trace of uncertainty. "Did you sign the divorce papers?" I asked flatly. He rubbed a hand hard over his face, as though trying to wipe away some invisible pain. "I know you don't want to see me. I just wanted to stand here for a bit. I didn't expect to get lucky and actually run into you. I made soup for you. Why won't you drink it? I even learned new recipes to help you recover. I put extra cilantro in it the way you like." His voice cracked as he spoke my name, and when he lifted his gaze to meet mine, there was a fleeting broken smile. "I know," he said finally. "You're never going to forgive me, are you?" "Olivia, I truly regret it. I wasn't the husband you deserved. I hurt you, and we lost our baby because of me. That day at the hospital when I found out you were ending the pregnancy, I've never hated myself more." His voice faltered. "I don't even know how I became that person. I swore I'd never talk to Camilla Rhodes again, but when she came to me, I thought she was just an old friend. She said she missed me, that she needed me, and I was weak. I let myself be swayed. I'm worthless." I studied his face for a moment, then let out a small, humorless laugh. "You don't need to tell me the details, and you don't need to feel guilty on my behalf. When I married you, I believed you truly cared for me, and I cared for you. But maybe your love was never as strong as I thought. Maybe all it took was a few sweet words from someone else for you to throw it away. A man like that doesn't deserve for me to have his child or to walk through life beside him. In fact," I added, "I should thank Camilla. She helped me see who you really are. People lose their way in marriage sometimes, but a decent man shoulders responsibility. You didn't." The month passed quickly, and I returned to work, slipping back into my routine as though nothing had happened. Between us, the only thing left unresolved was the division of property. It wasn't long before my phone rang. "Hello, Ms. Hartman," a calm voice said. "This is Thomas Grant, attorney for Mr. Ethan Whitmore." Thomas Grant, Ethan Whitmore's attorney, called me that morning. His voice was polite but carried a professional sharpness. "My client has some questions about the property division in your divorce agreement. Could you come to our office this afternoon to discuss, just as I had expected?" Thankfully, I was already prepared. I had compiled every photo, video, and audio recording I'd collected over the past few months. After sending a request for a day off to my boss, Margaret Turner, she frowned concern, flashing across her face. "You're planning to go alone. I don't want to cause trouble, Margaret. I'll be fine." Her expression hardened. "Do you think they'll play fair? When I got divorced, they forced me out without a single penny. I'm not letting you go through that." She took a slow drag from her cigarette, her eyes fierce and resolute. A few minutes later, a tall man in a black suit walked into her office. His broad shoulders and sharp chiseled features exuded quiet authority. Yet there was something youthful about him, like someone who had only recently stepped out of law school, though the confidence in his gaze said otherwise. "Bella," he said to Margaret, his tone cool and clipped. "What's going on?" She leaned back in her chair, smoke curling lazily in the air. "One of my employees was cheated on. Now her ex-husband's lawyer wants to negotiate the divorce settlement." "You're the first person I thought of." She glanced at me and tilted her chin slightly. "This is my brother Adrian Cole, one of the top partners at Cole & Partners law firm. Give him every piece of evidence you have, and trust me, your ex won't even be left with his socks." For reasons I couldn't explain, my cheeks grew warm. I awkwardly handed Adrian the neatly organized folder. His eyes, sharp as cold steel, softened just slightly as he scanned the documents. I couldn't hold his gaze for long and quickly looked away, only to hear a low chuckle from Margaret. When I glanced up, she winked and mouthed something I didn't want to hear. "Go for it." I quickly shook my head. A divorced woman who had just lost her child could hardly be worthy of a man like him. Margaret clicked her tongue but didn't press further. A few minutes later, Adrian closed the file and looked at me. "With what you have here, we have over a 90% chance of winning unless you also committed adultery during the marriage." "Did you?" I shook my head. "No, I was dealing with anorexia, barely skin and bones, and my mental health was falling apart. I didn't have the time or energy for anything else." His eyes lingered on me for a moment before he stood gathering the documents. "All right then, we have no problem. Let's go." We met at Pike Street Cafe, the location Ethan's side had chosen for the meeting. When Adrian and I walked in, Ethan wasn't there yet. To break the silence, I asked, "So you're Margaret's brother?" He sipped his coffee and nodded. "Yes, she uses our mother's last name." I nodded slowly. That explained the resemblance but different surnames. Before I could say more, a cold voice cut through the air behind me. "Olivia, who is he?" I turned and found Ethan standing there, anger simmering in his eyes. Behind him was his mother, Victoria Whitmore, and a man in a gray suit, Thomas Grant. All three of them looked at me like I was on trial. I stood, keeping my tone calm. "This is my attorney, Adrian Cole, and this is my ex-husband, Ethan Whitmore." Adrian gave a polite nod, completely ignoring the hand Thomas Grant extended toward him. "All right," Adrian said evenly. "Let's get started." He sat down, every movement exuding quiet authority. Ethan's eyes softened as he looked at me. "Olivia, I wasn't trying to pressure you. I just thought, maybe if we talked about the settlement, we could find a way back to each other." I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped me. "You thought this would make me come back. If that's the case, then I must be the biggest fool alive." Adrian didn't flinch, his voice steady as he cut in. "Based on the evidence my client has provided, we could easily ensure you leave this marriage with nothing. However, you're unhappy with the current division of assets and want to renegotiate. Is that correct?" Ethan's gaze shifted to Adrian, a trace of disdain flickering in his eyes, though I couldn't tell if it was because of Adrian's words or his striking appearance. Her evidence could be fabricated. The attorney's voice on the phone was calm but firm. "My client has a few concerns about the division of assets in the divorce agreement. Could you come to our office this afternoon to discuss them?" Exactly as I had expected. Fortunately, I was prepared. I gathered every photo, video, and recording I had collected over the past few months, then walked into my boss's office to request a day off. Margaret Turner eyed me, her brows knitting together. "You're going alone," I hesitated. "It's fine, I don't want to trouble anyone." Her lips tightened around a cigarette. "Do you really think they won't play dirty? I once got forced into a divorce and walked away with nothing. I'm not letting that happen to you." Her voice was sharp, decisive. Minutes later, there was a knock on the door and a tall man in a black suit stepped in. His presence was quiet but commanding, his angular features, striking enough to belong on a magazine cover, though his expression was all business. "What is it, sis?" His voice was low and cool, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. Margaret leaned back in her chair, exhaling a curl of smoke. "One of my employees got cheated on. Now the other side's lawyer wants to renegotiate the divorce settlement. You are the only one I could think of." Then she looked at me and tilted her chin toward him. "This is my brother Adrian Cole, one of the top partners at Cole & Partners law firm. Give him all your evidence, and I promise your ex-husband won't even walk away with the shirt on his back." Heat rushed to my cheeks as I handed Adrian the files I had so carefully prepared. His sharp eyes scanned through the documents with quiet focus. I looked away quickly, not trusting myself to hold his gaze. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Margaret smirking, mouthing words only I could read. If you like him, go for it. I shook my head furiously, my pulse quickening. A divorced woman still aching from the loss of her child could never be worthy of a man like him. Margaret just clicked her tongue and said no more. After a few moments, Adrian looked up. Based on this evidence, we have over a 90% chance of winning unless you've committed adultery during your marriage. Have you? I shook my head. No, I was dealing with an eating disorder, skin and bones, mentally drained. I didn't have the energy for anything else. He studied me for a beat, then closed the folder. Good. Then we have no problem. Let's go. We met the opposing party at Pike Street Cafe, their chosen meeting spot. Ethan Whitmore wasn't there yet, so I tried to break the awkward silence. So, you're Margaret's younger brother. Adrian took a slow sip of coffee, then nodded. Yes. She uses our mother's last name. I nodded back, finally understanding why they looked so alike, yet had different surnames. But before I could say more, a voice sharp and full of anger cut through the air behind me. Olivia, who is this? I turned to see Ethan standing there, eyes blazing, his mother. Victoria Whitmore at his side, and a man in a gray suit right behind them. Their eyes swept over me like I was on trial. I rose calmly. This is my attorney, Adrian Cole, and this is my ex-husband, Ethan Whitmore. Adrian gave a brief nod, ignoring the hand extended by Ethan's lawyer. All right, let's begin. Ethan's gaze softened slightly as he turned to me. Olivia. I didn't come here to fight, I just wanted to see if there was any way to make you stay. I laughed bitterly. You think this will make me come back? Then I'd be the biggest fool alive. Adrian's voice cut in smoothly but with an edge. Based on the evidence my client has provided, we could easily ensure you leave this marriage with nothing. And yet you're unhappy with the current division and want to renegotiate. Is that correct? Ethan's jaw tightened. Her evidence could be fabricated. No, probably just startled, Adrian's sister said with a light laugh. That evening, she insisted Adrian drive me home. I politely declined, but somehow I still found myself stepping into the elevator with him. The awkward tension from the first time we met seemed to creep back in, wrapping itself around us like a thick fog. I thought you would have figured it out by now, he said quietly. I tilted my head, staring up at him in confusion. Figured what out? He let out a slow breath, his gaze softening. My feelings. I blinked at him, caught off guard. Adrian, you're not exactly obvious about it? He held my eyes for a moment, something unspoken passing between us. Do you remember how we first met? He asked. I hesitated. Of course I do, but why bring that up now? His jaw tightened. Because I never forgot. But I hoped you would. You're still young, Olivia. You shouldn't let an incomplete love or an unhappy marriage chain you down. I cut him off. I'm not afraid of being chained down. I'm afraid of being a burden to you. That made him blink. I continued softly. I've remembered you since high school. You were the brightest person in the whole school, top grades, winning competitions, representing us in everything. You were so untouchable, Adrian. Like a light so high above that I could only admire from afar. I was afraid you'd look down on me. Even before I got married, I didn't dare get close. And after the divorce, I had even less courage. His smile faded. He studied me intently, then sighed. The only thing I fault you for is not having better judgment in men. Everything else isn't something you need to worry about. I'm a grown man, Olivia. I can decide my own future and take responsibility for it. And what I'm saying to you now, this isn't some spur-of-the-moment impulse. I mean every word. His handsome face was inches from mine, eyes steady, like he was trying to see straight into my soul. I know you've been hurt deeply by what happened before. That's why I didn't reveal myself right away. But I want you to hear this if you want. I'll sign a prenuptial agreement. If I ever betray you, everything I own will be yours. All I need is for you to say yes. It was probably the longest I'd ever heard him speak outside of a courtroom. I could see the hint of nerves in his expression, but also that undeniable sincerity that stirred something deep inside me. My heartbeat was pounding so loudly it felt like it echoed in my ears. Olivia, he said softly. Give me a chance. Please. Yes, I whispered. His eyes widened. What did you just say? I said yes. The hesitation on his face melted into sheer joy. Without warning, he swept me into his arms, startling me so much that my hands instinctively went around his neck. I'm so happy, Olivia. I swear I'll cherish you for the rest of my life. I looked down at him, the starlight of 1,000 skies reflected in his eyes. Tears blurred my vision, but I smiled through them and kissed him softly. His parents turned out to be warm and welcoming, with not a shred of judgment about my divorce. They treated me with genuine kindness. When Margaret Turner, my boss, heard the news, she pulled Adrian aside at the office. I didn't hear the full conversation, but I caught her sly smile and a teasing, "Well, it's about time." On our wedding day at the Rainier View Ballroom, Adrian and I stood at the entrance greeting guests as they arrived. That's when I noticed a familiar pair of eyes across the room, Camilla Rhodes, standing next to Victoria Whitmore. Camilla kept her head down, dabbing at her eyes, clearly trying to hide her tears. Victoria, however, looked me over with open disdain. When she realized it was me, she froze, her face twisting between surprise and anger. "You," she spat, her voice low but laced with venom. "I can't believe you married into the Cole family. Ethan still remembers you, yet you turn around and marry someone else, clever girl. One step, and you've become the wife of the richest man in the city." Her mocking laugh was sharp, her gaze dripping with contempt, as if my happiness was somehow an insult to her. Adrian, unfazed, slipped his arm around my waist and said coolly, "If her son truly still remembers my wife, he should save himself the trouble. He's the one who didn't value what he had." Without giving Victoria the chance to retort, Adrian led me away. His smile was faint, but the edge in his voice was unmistakable. "Who does she think she is, coming here to lecture you? Don't worry, sweetheart. Your husband will protect you." On a mischievous impulse, I rose on my heels and kissed his cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark. He glanced at me with a mix of tenderness and mock severity. "Careful, or I'll walk up on stage with this mark still on my face." My eyes widened and I quickly grabbed a napkin, flustered as I wiped it away, my cheeks burning. He chuckled under his breath, leaning in just enough for me to hear, "Relax, Olivia. You'll have all night to leave your marks on me."